Hello and welcome to another episode of the Maverick Mystic Podcast. Today we're going to chat about electromagnetism, and this is following along within the 8th step of Franz Bardon's initiation into Hermetics. Now this step is one that a lot of people get stuck on, and the electromagnetism, or the electric fluid and the magnetic fluid, this is a foundational component of any energy work we're going to be doing, especially as we keep progressing along the path. Right? So for starters, we break the elements into the electric fluid to the fire, the magnetic fluid to the water, the electromagnetic fluid, the combination of both, to the earth, and the flux point in between electric and magnetic to the air. So at this stage, really, what we tend to look at is it's almost that there's only two elements, right? There is fire and water, yin and yang, electric and magnetic. And then you get the combination, earth, and the flux point, air. But really the earth and the air are just the qualities of the electric or the magnetic fluids. So these two substances, right, these are, you can look at them as principles that are at play at each layer of the vibrational scale. Anything that is of any type of form, right, will have a relationship to the electric fluid and the magnetic fluid. Now, as you start refining more and more, and the nature of the frequencies that you're touching within your alchemical processes, as that keeps growing and evolving, what happens is you start to notice that as you spread apart the frequency, right, as you spread apart the frequencies, within it is a fluxating electric and magnetic fluid substance. And you can start to pull that apart as time goes on. So as you keep exploring this, you'll find that in almost every frequency that you're working with, right? When you look at the Akasha and its coarser nature, the ether, what you find is that the out of the Akasha comes the electric and magnetic fluid, right? And so this is even like, it's real close to where the most current cutting edge of plasma physics is, which is from nothing comes something, and something collapses back into nothing. And when you start looking at what they're referring to now as 0 point energy, or the ether, again, the coarser nature of the Akasha, is you get this, a bunch of the spiritual symbology starts to express itself as subatomics, essentially, how that works. So anyway, the working with the electric fluid and the magnetic fluid is very, very important, because this allows us to find a very life-inducing balance, right? Or help us balance the forces of living substance, right? And this will allow us to work underneath each layer of the vibrational scale that we might be working with as the constituent components of each layer, right? So it exists vitally, it exists astrally, it exists mentally, and we really want to develop our understanding of this. So the first exercise that Bardon goes through is developing the electric fluid, right? And this is done through the fire element and through light. and there's an expansive quality to this, right? With the magnetic fluid, there's a cohesive quality to this. And a common question that comes up is, well, what's the difference between the fire element and the electric fluid? Well, there's the electric fluid will present itself in a number of different ways at each layer. So a lot of folks will get stuck on, well, this specifically is the electric fluid, or this is a parallel to Yang Qi, for example, and magnetic fluid is a parallel to Yin Qi. But if we get stuck on trying to impose constraints, we limit the cyclical nature of the substance itself and how it can present at layer after layer of the path that we're walking here. So if you can build the magnetic fluid and build the electric fluid and get a good solid feeling for what those are like at whatever stage you happen to be at, then you can work on them. Keep an open mind, and the exploration can keep evolving. Impose very, very specific definition, and that evolution ceases. Right? So something to be aware of as you're working through this. Now, there is, of course, the out to in approach and the in to out approach, right? And those are described as the deductive and inductive methods. Basically, if you're going out to in, you are submerging yourself from the outside to the inside with the substance. From the inside to the outside, you're bringing that substance into you and then radiating it out. So these are just techniques, tools to help us find multiple different relationships with the electric fluid and with the magnetic fluid. Now, when you start working the building up of substances, and this occurs with right at the beginning, even with vital energy, is people will start to hold the breath, right? And we want to be as fluid as possible, right? We want to allow for flow to occur, right? Movement and flow is literally that's the spherical process, or spiralical, the spiraling process that brings form and non-form in and out of itself, right? So we want to be very cognizant of maintaining flow, maintaining movement, right? And the more cultivated our equanimity is, the more that movement can occur. If we're holding our breath, we're forcing different types of compartmentalization and stagnancy into stretches of the body. So in order to be a conductor, we need to allow things to conduct. And there's, again, levels to this as there is to everything else. So we don't want to hold our breath, is the point there. Okay, now as we keep going with this, you look at loading the magnetic fluid into the lower half of the body, the electric fluid into the upper half of the body, and you have these two poles within the body simultaneously. You can have these two poles flowing through the field simultaneously, and then you start to experiment with this and work with this. And a couple of examples he gives are working with the electric fluid moving through the fingertips of the right hand and out, and the magnetic fluid moving through the fingertips of the left hand and out. And this is the beginning of the exploration, alongside having the magnetic fluid in the center of a field. Maybe it's a ball between the hands, maybe it's however you want to play that, and the electric in the center and the magnetic on the periphery, right? And this is what tends to be worked quite often with cultivating energy centers within the body is that the electric energy is the one that will be worked with consciously, and then the magnetic fluid will start to connect and form a type of shape or a type of field, in essence, that the tissue itself starts to respond to. And that's one way that things can be worked within the physical body. Now, the explorations that we can engage with when it comes to working with the electric fluid and the magnetic fluid are pretty infinite. And when you look at a lot of the symbology that exists in occult literature and all these different systems, there's a lot with the electric and magnetic functioning, right? There's a lot with twists, coils, allusions to the serpents and the snakes. Now everything has multiple meanings, but when you start looking at this, there's a lot there. When the caduceus, or the two snakes that go up the staff there, this is our current medical symbology as well, the balance of electric and magnetic, right? The kundalini processes and many other things. There's a lot happening there. So then when you link the electric and magnetic, when you combine them, twist them up and link them, you essentially get the caduceus Ouroborosing itself, or eating its own double tail with its own double head. And this is another very, very strong doorway from the electric and magnetic fluid and component nature of substance as it meets itself, and then it's almost like it cancels itself out right into the ether and Akasha again. So this exploration of the electric and magnetic fluid, you work with the electric fluid, you become very accustomed to it, and with it you work with the magnetic fluid by itself, become very accustomed to it, develop that relationship, then start working them together. And in this particular step, which is the 8 there in that book, it's just an introduction to working with these substances, getting to know them a little bit. Then how you use them is always so much more than the exercises. And this is where a lot of people will stagnate on their path, is the assumption, it's more of an identity needed in a sense, where we get stuck on the exercises, right? And we need to move beyond the exercises, and that comes through very developed relationships with the substance itself. So the exercise is just a tool. It's just a tool to bring you into resonance with a thing. And then once you have that resonance, and that relationship, then you go out and you explore that. And this can be explored in solo meditations of all kinds. It can be explored in martial arts and qigong settings. It can be explored in music or art or anything else. So we're always looking at building blocks that underlie everything that is of expression. Okay, I think that's it for this particular portion. If you are interested in training, I have a retreat coming up in June 2025 here in Canada. Lots of beautiful nature to train in and get an understanding of the energies that we work with. And also we have the online training programs, so you can check those out. And I teach privately as well via video to folks around the world, so you're welcome to get in touch with me if you're interested in private coaching as well. All right, thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed this. Bye.